We fought by the crazy fighting rules featured in the anime Baki Hanma, where two of its characters decide to fight by the loser-loses rules. A supposed dueling form originated in 16th century Europe and practiced by the nobles, where both contenders hold different ends of a single handkerchief and fight each other with a free hand until one of the participants lets go, and not only loses the fight, but also their honor. While I was unable to find any information about a specific dueling type named loser-loses outside of the anime, the closest I found was a historical dueling type known as duel or literally a duel with a handkerchief, where two duelists would in fact hold different ends of a handkerchief, but with the other hand, they were not fighting each other with bare hands. Instead, they fought with swords or even pistols, a duel that in most cases led to the death of one or even both of the participants. While I was not feeling like having a death battle with swords and pistols, as I was watching the duel between Biscuit, Oliva, and Guevara and Baki Hanma, I couldn't stop thinking, how would such a duel go in real life? I just had to find out. So, I called up a friend from my boxing training and asked if he could invite more of his boxing friends to meet me in the gym to film a YouTube video, without telling them what we're going to do exactly to keep the element of surprise. Now, partially, I got myself into trouble. First of all, my friend, who's already a capable amateur boxer, invited 3 more amateur boxers with multiple fights, which is way more experience than I had, making the upcoming duels way more intense and intimidating for me, as these rules made everything more extreme. Also, during the moment of revealing what we're going to do, not everyone was impressed, as one of the participants decided to even skip the filming entirely. Luckily though, 3 of the fighters stayed and were willing to join me in this experiment. In the anime, the fighters fought the loser-loses duel under 3 different circumstances. First, by holding the handkerchief with their fingers however they wanted, then by holding it with only their pinkies and thumbs, in order to have as little grip as possible, and then eventually, they switched to the so-called Gilberto-style grip, where the handkerchief is not held by any fingers at all, but instead, it's just held by its own weight on the palm. Since we realized that holding the handkerchief by any desired grip will lead to the most intense fights, as it will require the most punches in order to make the other person let go of it, to start up as a warm-up, we decided to keep the full grip for the end, and instead, we began with the Gilberto-style grip, to see if it's even possible to have such a duel at all. We also agreed to strike the head with 50 to 70% of our power, and with 100% power to strike only the body, in order to prevent unnecessary brain damage. But of course, as anyone who has done boxing before knows, once things get heated, holding back doesn't always work out. So we'll have to see how everything goes once we ramp up the pace. Fight. It turns out fighting without any grip on the handkerchief is very difficult, especially since every time I got struck to the head, there was a natural instinct to tense up and grab the handkerchief, something that we were not allowed to do. So every time I instinctually did grab it, I let go of it and admitted my defeat, since I was not following the rules correctly. And even during the time when I thought I won, it turns out I instinctively grabbed and pulled the handkerchief without even realizing it, in the end still leading to my loss. Eventually we figured that this type of duel won't bear much results, as we were way too focused on not grabbing the handkerchief and it limited to how much we can fight each other. So we decided to move on to the second phase of the duel, where we were holding it just with our pinkies and thumbs. And although I was concerned that this will lead to more dangerous fights, that's actually when the fun began. Although my dueling partner had the upper hand over me with his superior boxing experience, I eventually decided to simply pull out the handkerchief out of his hand, and succeeded in doing so, as my partner was way too focused on boxing and forgot to have a strong grip. A great example that it's not always the best fighter who wins a match, but sometimes it's the one who uses the rules better to their advantage. Then, as the other 2 fighters went on to have the duel based on the same rules, after a while, once one of the fighters forgot about the handkerchief, the other one successfully used the same technique as I did by simply pulling it out. And then the other fighter did the same to him. But now we were all aware that that's possible, and we're ready to be much more alert and conscious of our grips in order to not repeat the same mistake twice. Still, although the fights went longer, no matter how hard we tried to hold onto the handkerchief, the thumb and pinky grip was just simply too weak, and whoever found the right moment to pull it out kept winning. So then we decided it was time to move on to the final and ultimate form of the loser-loses duel by gripping the handkerchief with our fingers however we want it, giving us the strongest grip. These rules though posed a great danger to us all and made me the most concerned, as in the case where we will not be able to pull the handkerchief out due to a weak grip, the other best way to get it out will be by doing some serious damage to each other. In an attempt for things not to get out of hand too much, we decided to time each duel to a single minute, after which if nobody won, we would call it a draw. But what I realized during these duels surprised me. No, not this time. The more we fought, the more new and unpredictable situations came about. And new and unexpected techniques were created. That we all kept learning from each other. Yet what stood out for me the most, that despite this form of duel being the most dangerous, it was also where we had the most fun. That made me think of Baki Hanma, the anime itself, which tells the story of people who always seek to improve themselves, even if it means risking their well-being and going out of their comfort zones. This is especially well told in season 2, where the fighters meet a prehistoric warrior who is more powerful than all of them, but instead of fearing him, they feel an urge to challenge and fight him, seeking the improvement and thrill that the fight will provide, even if it means getting seriously injured as a result. As we continue to fight ourselves, with every win and loss, we became more and more knowledgeable of what works and what doesn't, progressively making the fights more intense, but also more enjoyable. And then came the time for the final duel. Despite my dueling partner having the upper hand throughout the most of the sparring, I managed to use everything I learned from the experience and everyone else and won this fight. Yet what matters more than that is that even though this type of duel was originally created to settle differences and to humiliate your enemies, after going through this experiment, we instead felt a greater bond with each other, while I also better understood the meaning of Baki Hanma, that behind all the violent and testosterone-filled fights, there is a message that we constantly need to challenge ourselves and go out of our comfort zones in order to become better and experience life to its fullest. If you want to see how I tried 22 hard as Jackie Chan training exercises, click on this video right here. And until next time, keep owning your journey.